Howdy out there, folks. Today we're going to be talking about Fight Club, something that we should never do but seem impossibly unable to refrain from. This is, of course, a 1999 release, and this is a standard def DVD. I really like it, actually. This is one of the first DVDs I bought when I started collecting, and I think that this release is fantastic. The packaging is interesting. It has what appears to be a little scene selection. This really isn't much. I suppose it might have been something else in here. It's been a while since I've opened this disc up, but in any case, the movie, of course, it needs no introduction. It's a terrific piece of cinema, directed by David Fincher, starring Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, Helena Bonham Carter, Meatloaf, Jared Leto. It's a bizarre film. It's one of those movies that you have to just sit and watch and appreciate for what it is, which is a subversive piece of cinema based on an even more subversive novel of the same name. This is a film that isn't perfect. I do think that, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I think that the twist at the end isn't totally earned, and in fact, I think it may be rightly criticized as being a bit tropey. But having said all that, the first 40 minutes in particular are just cinematic perfection. David Fincher just nails it. The editing, the sound design, the cinematography, the acting, I mean, everything about this movie in that opening half hour to 40 minutes just snaps. It's one of the most enjoyable times I've had sitting in a theater watching a movie. Now, sadly, it does lose some of its narrative momentum, and you begin to look at your watch a little bit toward the end. And I think it's an interesting story, and I'm fine even with the twist, as a vehicle to get at what the author's trying to say. However, I still think that there could have been a better film made with perhaps another rewrite or two. I just feel like the movie never lives up to that promising opening half hour, 45 minutes. Having said all that, there is no denying that this is a terrific piece of cinema, and I think it's one of David Fincher's best films. I've always marveled every time I've sat and watched it at just how committed it is to its subversive nature. It's a really interesting film that, of course, has been twisted to fit whatever narrative people want to sort of put out there. So, of course, among other things, I believe the incel crowd has used this as its anthem, and I'm not sure that's really what the point of this film is. I do think it's a bit of an anarchist cookbook type of movie, but I also think that there's an underlying sort of unease with all of the male characters in this film, that despite their efforts to sort of beat each other into a pulp to feel something, to get out of the seeming rat race that we're all in, of just earning to consume, I think that it's more of a symptom of an underlying disease whose pathology is just not quite definable. I think you could probably make the case that just it's societal sickness manifested in a very interesting sort of misogynistic, self-loathing way. Now, this is a film that, again, I think that I wish that it had been another draft had been generated, because as it stands now, I think that this is a solid B+ film that starts off with just some amazing promise that it just doesn't live up to at the end. Is it still a good movie? Absolutely. Is it a terrific vehicle for Brad Pitt and Edward Norton? You betcha. Is it rewatchable? Yes, and that's why it's on my shelf. But I also think that there was promise of it being one of the all-time greats that it didn't quite live up to. But again, I would just say that if you haven't seen Fight Club, I've tried my best not to spoil anything. Do yourself a favor and sit down and watch it. It's really good. And secondly, if you have and you've not seen it in a while, I think it's definitely worthy of a rewatch. But I'd be curious to know what my viewers think about the second half of the film and whether they feel like it lost its narrative momentum. So on that note, please do take care out there, everyone. Stay safe, be kind, and keep watching cinema.